says artificial photosynthesis.
Whoa! My robot started dancing. Yeah, mine is doing like
What can we draw from cognitive psychology and the learning sciences to help us make games that support conceptual learning? And how can we make digital games accessible and useful for teachers? Those are the questions we set out to investigate with Possible Worlds, a 5-year research and development project. We developed 4 modules of supplemental materials, each with a digital game as its centerpiece. The modules address topics covered in middle grade science, and each focuses on a common misconception. We field tested the modules throughout the process and are conducting an experimental trial of one of them.
Scientific misconceptions persist among the graduates of some of our best schools, so this is clearly an area where teachers could use some help. So we decided to develop a set of games addressing well-known misconceptions. Now, when teachers see kids playing digital games, they tell us they are filled with envy because they see that the kids persist in the face of failure, tolerate frustration, and try over and over again in order to get it right, something that teachers would love to see them do with school material. One of the affordances of the medium of digital games is this repetitive strategic play. Learning from failure, doing it again and again in order to figure out how to win the game, how to complete the mission. There is no shame in starting over again in a game. There is no stigma in failure. So we decided to use this characteristic of games to give kids the opportunity to construct a representation, an analogy, a map or a model, in preparation for learning. The picture will become familiar not because of what it represents, but because one of the survival skills in the game requires it. What we know about learning tells us that constructing the picture makes it more meaningful than just looking at it, even when accompanied by a good explanation. So if the teacher later on in the classroom uses that picture and helps students see how it represents something in nature, hopefully that familiar analogy will help them understand the science and hopefully replace the stubborn misconception they started out with. But the positive motivation to do that, to persist, to keep reconstructing it, to learn from failure, really only exists in a real, genuine game. One that has all of those characteristics that teachers envy when they see kids playing them. So we made sure that we partnered with a game shop that actually knew how to make successful commercial games.
We're collaborating with First Playable Productions, a studio that's created many popular handheld games. The topic of the first game we worked on together was photosynthesis.
We took something that could be very boring to a kid, which is learning the structure of glucose or other molecules, and we put it in the context of something that was a fun adventure that made you want to keep coming back.
While we were prototyping the puzzle game, which is about photosynthesis, we realized that the player had to be an active agent controlling the sunlight, so they could then break up the molecules directly with the light energy.
To do that, to assign the player the role that sunlight actually plays in photosynthesis, we set the game in a science fiction world where that might be possible. To navigate this world, the Ruby realm, the player controls a hybrid robot, part plant, part machine, called BioBot Bob. Bob uses a recombination of atoms from carbon dioxide and water molecules for food, fuel, and self-defense. To power the robot, the player has to produce glucose using the robot's molecular replicator. In the replicator, the player shoots beams of light energy at molecules to pop them apart and then recombines the atoms to form a new substance. The player is actively causing chemical change. This is important because what students need to experience as a bridge to the accurate but counterintuitive scientific theory is what happens to make molecules recombine in the first place. Taking an active role in constructing molecules might help them imagine what happens inside a leaf during photosynthesis. Using the substances they make in the replicator, players drive Bob through a treasure-filled cave to rescue friends captured by vampires. Bob's need for glucose fuel arises in the course of the story, and the player's repeated construction of molecules is just part of winning the game. Each of our games invites players to interact with this type of visual representation, one that serves as an analogy for a complex concept that explains a natural phenomenon. In Monster Music, our platformer game about electricity, the analogy takes the form of an alignment puzzle. In Robo Riot, a strategy game, a robot recycling machine provides an analogy for the role of randomness in heredity. And the core activity in our puzzle game, Galactic Gloop Zoo, illustrates directionality in heat transfer. We also designed linking activities and materials to help teachers integrate the video games into their regular classroom teaching.
This has been a remarkable experience for me and really a great revelation, because I was never a person who was interested in video gaming technology, either in my personal life or in my professional life, and I never saw the value or the potential value in video gaming technology until I began to collaborate with CCT. And through the course of this collaboration, and as I saw the way my students reacted and embraced the technology, I began to realize that there was tremendous potential in using this technology in science, in my science classroom. There really was a remarkable transformation that I saw in my students, and it has really changed the way I think about my own classroom teaching, and it's going to change the way I teach in the future.
The research team really has three different jobs, and the first is conducting formative research to inform the development team. The second is conducting field tests of each of the modules in real classrooms, and the third is beginning to look at the impact of these resources on student outcomes. The first of these, formative testing, is really done entirely in the service of the development team, and that's done with small groups of students, and is really all about helping us to check on the comprehensibility and the accessibility of the materials that we're creating to the kids that they're intended to be designed for. The second piece of the work is carrying out field tests in real classrooms, working closely with teachers. And that work is really critical because our goal is to design materials that can be used in classrooms that really don't have a lot of special circumstances or special resources or organizational structures to allow gaming to be part of the regular curriculum. So it's really critical for us to go out in the field, work closely with teachers, and see what these things look like out in the real world. And a critical piece of that is really about informing our theoretical models and helping us understand the extent to which what we thought was going to happen might really happen in the field, and what we might need to start thinking about differently. The third piece of this, of course, is beginning to look at impact, which is something we're really in the very early stages of. We need to think really carefully about what kinds of assessments to use and coming up with a range of assessments that help us to really tap into kids' conceptual understanding, both in the short term and the longer term. And we're working through that process and have taken the first major step in that. We've done an experimental trial of our first module, the one focused on photosynthesis, and that study involved about 40 teachers and about 1,000 students, and we're looking at that data now, and we're really excited to see what we find.
First Playable has received Phase 1 funding from the Small Business Innovation Research Program to begin redesigning our modules for the iPad. Our continuing research will help us refine possible worlds and determine how to further broaden its impact on science teaching and learning.